Today, I asked ChatGPT to predict the outcome of every state in the 2028 presidential election. First, we identified the nominees for each party. For Democrats, ChatGPT projected a governor-led ticket: Gavin Newsom of California for president and Wes Moore of Maryland for vice president. Its explanation: a coastal mid-Atlantic blend that marries executive experience with generational change. Newsom's national profile and fundraising machine pair with Moore's military background and appeal to black, suburban, and younger voters in the mid-Atlantic and upper South. The ticket's message: competence, stability, and a forward-leaning economic agenda. For Republicans, the AI forecast Vice President J.D. Vance at the top of the ticket with Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, a former Democrat who entered the MAGA orbit after her 2020 presidential run, as his running mate, as ChatGPT put it, a populist fusion aimed at reassembling the Trump coalition while courting swing voters skeptical of both parties. Vance carries blue-collar Midwest credibility. Gabbard adds crossover appeal on foreign policy restraint and cultural moderation. The play boosts turnout across the interior South and heartland while narrowing deficits in the Sun Belt. With the nominees set, we can fill out the map. There are 538 electoral votes at stake, and 270 is the magic number to win the White House. For clarity, I asked ChatGPT to sort every state into 4 ratings for either party, using Ballotpedia's definitions. Safe means one party has a clear edge and the race isn't competitive. Likely means one party has a clear edge, but an upset is possible. Lean means one party has a small edge and the race is competitive. Tilt means one party has only a slight edge and the race is highly competitive. For the methodology, I instructed the AI to weigh each state's partisan lean, how it has voted in recent elections, alongside its trajectory over time. But more than that, I encouraged it to be imaginative while staying realistic, making an informed projection about the country's political direction heading into November 2028. Starting with the Republicans, ChatGPT identified a broad set of states that the Vance-Gabbard ticket is virtually certain to win. Together, these states account for 197 electoral votes, forming the GOP's foundation on the path to 270. There are no surprises here. Donald Trump carried each of these states by double-digit margins in 2024. The closest among them were Iowa, Texas, and Florida, each of which backed the Republican president by between 13 and 14 points. On the Democratic side, ChatGPT listed a slightly smaller group of safe states for the Newsom-Moore ticket, combining for 177 electoral votes. Again, no surprises. Kamala Harris carried each of these states by double digits in 2024. And it's fair to expect that the 2028 environment won't be any worse for Democrats than 2024 was. That outlook aligns with Kalshi's latest prediction market odds, which currently give Democrats a 54% chance of winning, a virtual toss-up, but one that suggests 2028 may be marginally more favorable to them than the last cycle. With the safe states tallied, that brings the count to 197 electoral votes for Republicans and 177 for Democrats at this early stage of the map. Next are the likely states. For Republicans, this category includes Alaska, Maine's 2nd congressional district, Nebraska's 1st congressional district, and Ohio. Again, no surprises here. The days when Ohio commanded the nation's attention on election night are long gone. Donald Trump carried the Buckeye State by 11 points in 2024, the widest margin for either party since 1984, when Ronald Reagan swept 49 of 50 states. On the Democratic side, 6 contests fall into the likely column: Maine, Virginia, New Jersey, Nebraska's 2nd congressional district, and New Mexico. Democrats just notched resounding victories in both Virginia and New Jersey's off-cycle gubernatorial races. In New Jersey, polling had Democrat Mikey Sherrill leading Republican Jack Ciattarelli by 5 points heading into Election Day. But as of this recording, Sherrill has been projected to win by nearly triple that margin, around 14.5 points. Meanwhile, in Virginia, Democrat Abigail Spanberger flipped the governor's office from red to blue by a nearly identical margin, marking what was widely seen as the electorate's first major rebuke of the second Trump administration. Even without those decisive performances, Democrats would still be favored to carry both Virginia and New Jersey in 2028. Republicans haven't won a federal election in either state since 2004, and Kamala Harris carried both by just under 6 points in 2024. New Mexico and Maine, meanwhile, have displayed strikingly similar voting patterns in recent cycles, an unlikely parallel given their contrasting demographics. New Mexico is among the most diverse states in the nation, with a Hispanic plurality, while Maine is the least diverse. That brings us to the 9 states expected to be truly competitive in 2028, according to ChatGPT's projection. At this stage, the Republican ticket, led by J.D. Vance, is projected to hold 219 electoral votes, while Democrat Gavin Newsom stands at 212. The remaining states, worth a combined 107 electoral votes, will ultimately determine who crosses the 270-vote threshold and captures the presidency. Next up are the lean states. Before we jump into them, let me take a quick moment to remind you to subscribe to the channel below. Right now, YouTube Analytics tells me that less than 20% of viewers are subscribed. So go ahead and hit that button. It's completely free, and it really helps me keep making videos like this in the future. Thanks so much. All right, for Republicans, ChatGPT is projecting just one state to fall in the lean category, Arizona. The Grand Canyon state saw one of the sharpest swings back toward Trump in 2024, giving him a decisive 5.5-point victory, 4 years after Joe Biden broke through with the first Democratic win in Arizona in the 21st century. Those shifts were driven largely by Trump's substantial gains among Hispanic voters and suburban working-class communities. The key question for the next Republican nominee will be whether they can sustain those gains, a challenge that GOP candidates in both New Jersey and Virginia failed to meet in their 2025 races. As for Democrats, their lean states, according to ChatGPT, are Minnesota and New Hampshire. You might be surprised to learn that Minnesota currently holds the longest active Democratic streak in the nation, 13 consecutive presidential elections. A surprising note, considering it is more often than not decided by a narrow margin. Harris carried the state by just over 4 points in 2024, and Trump came as close as a point and a half of Hillary Clinton back in 2016. New Hampshire has followed a similar trajectory across Trump's 3 campaigns, voting for Clinton by less than half a point in 2016, then swinging to Biden by over 7 before narrowing again for Harris, who won it by just under 3 points in 2024. Both Minnesota and New Hampshire rank in the top half of states for their share of college-educated voters, a key factor in their modest but consistent blue lean as America's educational divide continues to widen. That leaves 6 states ChatGPT labels as tilt, the closest contests from 2024, each decided by less than 3.5 points, all carried by Trump. Starting out west in Nevada, worth 6 electoral votes, Trump flipped the state red in 2024 by 3 points after losing it by identical 2.4% margins in both 2016 and 2020. Nevada ranks 46th nationally in the share of residents with a college degree, the lowest among states Biden carried in 2020, and it's the 5th most Hispanic state in the country. Those demographics make its sharp shift toward Trump unsurprising and help explain why ChatGPT again tilts Nevada Republican in 2028. Crossing to the southeast, we reach 2 16-vote battlegrounds, Georgia and North Carolina. Georgia narrowly flipped back to Trump in 2024 by 2 points, its closest alignment to the left of the national average since 1980, given Trump's 1.5-point national popular vote margin. Rapid population growth in the diverse, progressive Atlanta metro continues to reshape the state's politics, raising the question of whether Vance, or any Republican, can can maintain Trump's gains among Black and Hispanic voters. A noteworthy sign came in the 2025 special elections for Georgia's Public Service Commission, where Democrats won statewide non-federal offices for the first time since 2006, both with over 60% of the vote. Turnout was low at roughly 1.5 million compared to more than 5 million in 2024, but the results reinforce Georgia's gradual leftward drift. In fact, since 2012, Georgia has voted at least 3 points more Democratic relative to the nation in every presidential cycle, culminating in 2024 when it trailed the national average by just 1 point. That means Democrats would only have needed a national popular vote win of about 1 point to carry the state. Taking all that into account, ChatGPT predicts Georgia will narrowly tilt Democratic in 2028 by the slimmest margin imaginable, D plus 0.1. Now, as for North Carolina, the Tar Heel state shares many of the same demographic dynamics as Georgia, with a rapidly growing Charlotte metro and the research triangle keeping Democrats competitive. Trump carried North Carolina by 3 points in 2024, marking the 5th straight presidential race here decided by less than 4 points, the only state in the country with that level of consistent competitiveness across that period. For years, analysts have predicted that North Carolina was on the verge of flipping blue, but time after time, Democrats have fallen short at the presidential level. Down ballot, though, they've had more success, holding the governorship in 2024, along with the lieutenant governorship, attorney general, secretary of state, and perhaps most notably, a key Supreme Court race. The 2026 Senate election will tell us a lot about where the momentum lies heading into 2028. For now, ChatGPT is projecting a narrow Republican victory, which means Vance retakes the lead in the race to 270 now, with 252 to Newsom's 242, as we enter the core Rust Belt trio that's decided the last 3 presidential elections. From here, the electoral math is as straightforward as it is familiar. No matter what happens in the other tilt states, if Democrats sweep Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, known collectively as the WIMPA states, formerly the Blue Wall, they land exactly at 270 electoral votes. That's the ballgame. These 3 states have decided the last 3 presidential elections. Hillary Clinton lost all 3 in 2016, and with them the presidency. Joe Biden flipped them back in 2020 to defeat Trump. Then, in 2024, Trump narrowly reclaimed them to deny Kamala Harris a term in the Oval Office. It's no exaggeration to say the road to the White House still runs straight through Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And if history is any guide, the margins will once again be razor thin. This dynamic will shape the 2028 Democratic primary, and possibly the Republican one too, unless J.D. Vance locks up the nomination early. For Democrats, it could become the core argument for candidates like Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro or Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer over someone like Gavin Newsom, as popular incumbents who've already won in 2 of the nation's pivotal swing states. They'd have a strong case on electability, the same pitch that powered Joe Biden to victory in 2020. Even in a neutral political environment, the math shows how precarious this trio remains for Democrats. According to my own partisan voting index, which averages the past 4 presidential margins and adjusts for the national vote, all 3 lean slightly Republican. Michigan at R plus 0.6, Wisconsin at R plus 1.1, and Pennsylvania at R plus 1.4. In other words, if the national vote were tied, Republicans would be favored to win all 3, narrowly. For context, that still makes them the least Republican-leaning of the 7 major battlegrounds. Nevada comes in at R plus 1.5, Georgia at plus 2.6, North Carolina at 3.5, and Arizona at 4.4. The bottom line, these Rust Belt states are still among the most closely contested in the nation. They've voted in unison in every presidential race since 1988, and odds are they'll do so again. Their outcomes will almost certainly mirror the national mood, and that's the hardest thing to predict this far out. We don't yet know who the nominees will be, what the economy will look like, or how voters will be judging the second Trump presidency. If the election were held tomorrow, though, I'd probably place Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin all in the tilt Democrat column. That's largely because President Trump remains, statistically, the least popular president in modern history. His 42.6% approval rating is the lowest of his second term. The shutdown has played a major role, but lingering pessimism about the economy is also dragging him down, and no region feels that pain more than the Rust Belt, especially these three swing states. They're the ones that gave Trump his first win in 2016, only to turn on him in 2020, denying him a second term. If the next election were held today, the data suggests they'd likely turn against him again. ChatGPT seems to agree, projecting all three to tilt Democratic from D plus 0.4 in Pennsylvania up to D plus 1.2 in Wisconsin. And with that, the final ChatGPT projection for the 2028 presidential election has Gavin Newsom defeating J.D. Vance, 286 to 252 in the Electoral College. Of course, in reality, most of these tilt states are true toss-ups. There's just too much uncertainty about the economy, the candidates, and the unpredictable events that will unfold between now and Election Day. Honestly, I wouldn't give either party better than a 50-50 shot right now, but as always, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this map. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think. If you've got ideas for future videos or topics, I'm all ears. That's it for today's video. Big shout out to my channel members listed in the description below. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. Check out more of my videos right here, and as always, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. EP out.